The bell above the glass door of Maple Street Diner rang the same way it had rung every morning for the last 7 years. Sharp, bright, and full of possibility. But for Clara Bennett, it no longer sounded like possibility. It sounded like repetition. Clara tied her apron tightly around her waist and forced the smile that had become second nature. She was 28, with tired hazel eyes and a laugh that used to come easily. The regulars loved her. She remembered their orders, their birthdays, their stories. She poured coffee like it was a ceremony. But 3 months ago, something inside her had gone quiet. His name was Daniel. He had sat in booth 6 every Thursday evening, scribbling in a notebook and pretending not to notice her. Eventually, he had noticed her. Eventually, she had fallen for him. And eventually, he had left. Not with a dramatic fight, not with a grand explanation. Just a suitcase, a kiss on the forehead, and the words, "I need something different." Clara had stood in their tiny apartment kitchen holding a chipped mug, waiting for him to come back and say it was a mistake. He never did. That Tuesday afternoon, the diner buzzed with its usual rhythm, plates clinking, forks scraping, coffee refilling. Outside, rain tapped against the windows like impatient fingers. Clara was running on 3 hours of sleep and too many thoughts. At booth 3, Mrs. Henderson was describing her cat's latest medical emergency. At the counter, a group of construction workers laughed too loudly at something that wasn't funny. And then it happened. A man at the counter, mid-30s, wedding ring shining, complained about his wife. "She doesn't appreciate me," he said loudly to no one in particular. "Marriage isn't what I signed up for." Something inside Clara cracked. Before she could stop herself, she slammed the coffee pot down a little too hard. The room went quiet. She looked around at the faces, surprised, curious, mildly irritated. And then she shouted, "I need a husband!" The words ricocheted off the tiled walls. Forks froze midair. Someone dropped a spoon. Clara's heart pounded in her ears, but she didn't stop. "My ex left me, just walked out like I was yesterday's special, so if anyone's got a decent, loyal, emotionally available husband lying around, I'll take him." Silence. Then a nervous chuckle from the back. Her manager, Pete, stared at her like she just announced she was quitting to join the circus. Clara's cheeks burned, but she lifted her chin. "At least I'd appreciate one." And just like that, the spell broke. Conversations resumed in hushed tones. Mrs. Henderson gasped dramatically. The construction workers grinned. Clara picked up her coffee pot again, hands trembling slightly. What had she done? By evening, the story had spread across half the neighborhood. The waitress who shouted for a husband became the unofficial headline of Maple Street. The next morning, Clara dreaded work. She imagined whispers, pitying looks, jokes. Instead, she walked into something unexpected. A bouquet of daisies sat on the counter with a handwritten note. "You don't need just any husband. You deserve the right one." No name. Her stomach flipped. By lunchtime, 3 more notes had appeared. One offered free handyman services. Another included a terrible pickup line. The third simply read, "Don't settle." For the first time in weeks, Clara smiled for real. Over the next few days, something shifted. Customers began talking to her differently, not with pity, but with curiosity. A retired teacher told her about leaving her own unfaithful fiancé at the altar. A widower confessed he'd spent 30 years learning how to be a better husband. Even the grumpy mechanic admitted, "Anyone who walks away from you's an idiot." Clara realized something she hadn't expected. Her outburst hadn't been about needing a husband. It had been about being seen, to be valued, to be chosen. Daniel hadn't left because she was unworthy. He'd left because he was searching for something undefined, something that had nothing to do with her. The following Friday, the same complaining man returned to the counter. "My wife's been distant," he muttered. Clara refilled his coffee calmly. "Have you told her you appreciate her?" He frowned. "I guess not." "Try that,
before you decide marriage isn't what you signed up for. Her voice was steady now, not desperate, not shouting, just certain. 2 weeks after her public declaration, Clara found another note waiting at booth 6. This one was different. You don't need a husband. You need someone who stays. She sat in the booth, tracing the words with her finger. For the first time since Daniel left, she didn't feel abandoned. She felt open. Maybe love wouldn't walk in dramatically. Maybe it would sit quietly at booth 6 and order pie. Maybe it would take time. As she stood to return to work, Pete called from behind the counter. "Hey, Clara, you planning on shouting about anything today?" She laughed, a full, unguarded laugh. "Nope," she said. "Today, I'm just serving coffee." And when the bell above the diner door rang again, it didn't sound like repetition anymore. It sounded like possibility.